What does one do when the man who swore to bring unity together is the cause of a family's breaking apart? What does one do when a woman who held her ground for 40 years finally realizes she is worth more than broken vows? This is not Kody Brown and Janelle Brown's story alone. This is the breaking down of a dream that at one point promised to redefine love, faith, and family. For years, Sister Wives taught us the picture of a happy home held together by values and devotion. But today that picture is shattered, scattered by betrayal and the nerve to leave it. Janelle was never the screaming voice in the Brown home from the start. She wasn't the dramatic one. She wasn't the rebel. She wasn't the hopeless romantic. She was the voice of reason. The woman who maintained order amidst chaos. To a lot of viewers, she was the most identifiable, the one who didn't live on drama, but the one who always defended her children and her territory. But just because she was silent did not mean she agreed. All those years, Janelle made sacrifices for the benefit of the entire family. She believed in Kody's vision. She had faith in the vision of creating something special, even to the extent of placing herself second. But visions don't thrive on sacrifice alone. Year after year, Janelle sat and watched as her allegiance was challenged, not by external forces, but by the very man she was supposed to trust. Kody Brown used to be regarded as the charismatic patriarch of an unorthodox family. A man brave enough to live an unconventional life, but tough enough to keep it intact. But with time, cracks started to appear. His focus narrowed, his favoritism was blatant, and his tolerance for compromise thinned. Robin became the hub of his universe, and the other wives were just shadows in their own marriage. Christine noticed first and exited. Mary suffered heartbreak for years. And Janelle, always the rational one, reached her breaking point. Kody demanded control. He demanded loyalty. But he was offering less and less back. His idea of family had stopped being a matter of togetherness. It had become a matter of obedience. Every relationship has a moment of truth. For Janelle, it arrived not in that single blowout fight, but in all those little betrayals over years. It was the belittling comments, the broken promises, the evenings where her kids' needs were not met, but Robin's were tended to first. It was seeing her love and devotion being taken for granted. Janelle had surrounded herself with stability. But what do you do when the ground that you've trusted to hold you up suddenly breaks away from under you? She began to see what Christine saw, that to stay would mean losing herself. And when that seed of doubt was planted, there was no going back. As Janelle stepped back, the anger of Kody grew louder. He accused. He demanded. He attempted to label her autonomy as betrayal. He wanted her to conform to his view. Yet the more he sought to control her, the more resilient she was. The man who proudly boasted about maintaining a family intact found himself standing in ashes. Christine was gone. Mary was slipping away. And now Janelle, his business and logical partner, was no longer beside him. For Kody, this wasn't a failed marriage. It was losing control, the implosion of the empire he imagined he had constructed. But this is not a tragedy. This is a rebirth. For the first time in decades, Janelle chose herself. She began speaking openly about her struggles, no longer hiding behind the facade of keeping the peace. She showed the world that strength doesn't always mean staying silent. It means knowing when to walk away. Her courage inspired millions. Fans rallied behind her, calling her the true heart of Sister Wives. She wasn't chasing revenge. She wasn't seeking drama. She just wanted freedom. The ability to live life on her own terms, to love her children with abandon, and to walk into a future without shackles. Now, the Brown family stands reconfigured. The illusion of unity has broken, to be replaced by the stark reality of independence. Christine has gone on to happiness. Mary is forging her own uncertain way. And Janelle has joined them in forsaking sacrifice for self-respect. Kody is left, clinging to the remnants of his vision, but his family is no longer together. Audiences are left wondering, was it ever really about love, or was it always about control? The legacy of Sister Wives is no longer of a man ruling over his family. It is about the women taking back their voices, their freedom, and their right to happiness. And so, Kody and Janelle Brown's story is not merely another episode in a television show, it is a lesson. A reminder that respect, not loyalty, is what is needed. A warning that control is not equivalent to love. And a lesson that no matter how long it's been, it is never too late to choose yourself. Janelle's path teaches us that even the most subtle voices can thunder when pushed too hard. And Kody's fall reminds us that power founded on favoritism and pride cannot continue indefinitely. The Brown family might never be what it was before, but maybe that's the idea. Occasionally, endings are the only means through which new beginnings can flourish. And for Janelle, this is not defeat, it's liberation. What happens when the glue that once held a family together decides she can no longer bear the weight? What happens when the quiet strength, the steady hand, the wife who never demanded the spotlight, finally says enough? This isn't another reality TV headline. This is a pivotal moment in a tale millions have had an eye on for over a decade. It's not just about a marriage between Kody Brown and Janelle Brown. It's about the breakdown of loyalty, the repercussions of favoritism, and the strength of a woman who valued freedom over control. And it all starts with silence. The kind of silence that echoes louder than screaming. From the very first days of Sister Wives, audiences were brought into a reality unlike anything broadcasted on TV. 4 women, 1 man. A family founded on faith, strength, and a vow that unity could triumph over jealousy, and that loyalty could defeat doubt. Impossible to the outside observer. But Janelle Brown, she was the believer. She was not chasing romance like Christine. She was not desperately holding on to love like Mary. She was not taking on the role of favorite like Robin. She was consistent, earthed, the one who appeared to keep it all together as storms brewed around her. If Kody was the head, Janelle was the backbone. She held down the house, the kids, and the larger vision. For years the fans viewed her as the sensible wife, not dramatic, not clingy, but necessary. But even the strongest foundations can crack when the weight becomes unbearable. The truth is, Janelle's loyalty came at a price. She sacrificed dreams for Kody's vision. She placed stability above passion. She silenced doubts in the name of faith. And for years, she convinced herself it was enough. But backstage, the cracks were spreading. Kody's energy was beginning to shift. His vows of equal love and equal time were thinner than ever. His favoritism toward Robin wasn't subtle anymore. It was blatant. Janelle, who'd always thought about balance, was suddenly being squeezed to the edge. She remained quiet at first. That's who she was. The problem solver, not the fighter. But quiet doesn't equate to blind. She saw. She felt. She knew. And with each broken vow, each derisive remark, each second when her children's needs were secondary, Janelle found herself questioning things she never imagined. Am I really seen? Am I really valued? Or am I just convenient? At face value, the Browns continued to peddle the illusion. A happy family. An ambitious foray into love and religion. The cameras kept rolling. The plotlines unfolded. The message stayed the same. We may fight, but we always reunite. But life is never as neat as a TV show. For Janelle, those moments of peace were becoming more and more difficult to believe. The public witnessed family meals, group conversations, studied reconciliations. But what the public did not see were the lonely nights, the fights that caused scars. The way Kody's words slashed deeper when the cameras were off. Behind the scenes, Janelle wasn't living in a family anymore. She was getting by in one dot. Kody Brown has always lived on vision. Right from the start, he felt like he was creating something amazing, something greater than himself. And during those early years, that enthusiasm was infectious. But eventually the vision became more about control and less about unity. Kody demanded loyalty but showed little in exchange. He talked about family, but his actions screamed louder. His allegiance channeled nearly exclusively to Robin. To Janelle, this was not merely unfair. It was betrayal. She had signed up for a life of equality, where every wife got her say, and every child had a father. What she received instead was neglect, favoritism, and the searing knowledge that her sacrifices were never valued. The chasm between Kody's words and actions widened, and with it the chasm between him and Janelle. Every marriage is argumentative. Every family has disagreement. But what was transpiring between Janelle and Kody was different. It wasn't about one fight or a single misunderstanding. It was about years of bitterness accumulating like water behind a dam. And dams break eventually. Janelle, who previously had remained quiet, opened up. She questioned. She rebelled. She would not buy into Kody's version that the family was crumbling due to unfaithful wives. She recognized the reality. It was crumbling because one man was no longer holding up his own end of the bargain. Her strength, once concealed, became apparent, and for Kody that was threatening. He was accustomed to control, to obedience, to wives who would bend instead of break. But Janelle no longer was bending. She stood. It was subtle to begin with. A glance, a remark, a hesitation between interviews. But Sister Wives fans started to notice. Janelle wasn't the same. She was exhausted. Yes, but also more resilient. She walked with the quiet authority of someone who had finally ceased to pretend. Each word she uttered had the weight of years of silence. And audience members, many of whom were women who had given up too much in their own lives, saw the bravery it took. They saw themselves in Janelle, and they rooted her on. So why does this matter? Why has Janelle's turn attracted millions? Because it's not just about reality TV. It's not just about a plural family in Utah. It's about what goes down in marriages across the board. When loyalty is one way, when commitment is broken, when love turns into control. It's about how brave it is to leave something behind that you thought you loved with your entire heart. It's about being strong enough to say, I deserve better. And Janelle's story proves that even after decades of sacrifice, it is never too late to choose yourself. This is just the beginning. Janelle's breaking point isn't just another episode in the Sister Wives saga. It is a ripple that changes everything. Christine's departure was a shock. Mary's heartbreak was long and painful. But Janelle's strength is different. It isn't born from desperation. It's born from clarity. And that transparency has repercussions. For Kody, for Robyn, for the whole legacy of Sister Wives. So take a moment. If the woman who formerly kept the family together is currently walking away, what chance remains for Kody Brown? And how will that affect the future of the family who once said they could do anything at all, if they just did it together? The responses will shatter your heart, but they will also open your eyes. Because the truth is this: sometimes the strongest people are the ones who walk away. The woman who kept the peace. For years, Janelle Brown was the calm one. The Brown family's steady heartbeat. She didn't live on drama like Christine did sometimes. She didn't hang on to promises that never came through like Mary. She wasn't caught up in romantic fantasies like Robyn. No, Janelle was the practical one. The voice of reason, the one who ensured the bills were paid, the children nurtured, and the home smoothly functioning. Audiences loved her. She was tough without being boisterous, tough without being cynical, and considerate without being dumb. But this is the catch. The people who take everyone else's burdens on themselves are the ones that shatter when they do crack. And if they do crack, it isn't a snap. It's years in the process. Janelle's job within the Brown family wasn't glamorous. She worked hard, handled money, and tended to tasks that others ignored. She did it silently, thinking this was her part in the greater good. But beneath her placid surface, cracks were beginning. Every time she felt neglected by Kody, every time her children's needs were put on the back burner, every time she put her own dreams aside for the sake of the family vision that never seemed to come into being, Janelle began to understand something painful. Loyalty had made her disappear. She wasn't the wife Kody loved. She wasn't the wife he chose. She was the wife he thought should just get on with it. And determination, as great as it is, can only go so far. Initially, Janelle dismissed her fears. She reminded herself that it was just a phase, that every family experiences troubles. She remembered the larger picture, the vision they shared of one cohesive family, the faith they had in God, the notion that her sacrifices counted. But the seeds were sown, and they grew with each year. Why was Kody spending more time with Robyn? Why was she so lightly dismissed? Why did her loyalty feel like it was being paid back in distance? These were not questions. They were alarm bells. And over time, Janelle came to see that she was living in a marriage where she gave and received little in return. For Janelle, the turning point wasn't just about her marriage. It was about her children. She saw Kody's role in their lives become less frequent. She witnessed how favoritism created walls, how her kids felt the pain of being replaced. Janelle was a wife. Yes, but first and foremost, she was a mother. And no mother can deny when her kids are in pain. When fights with Kody escalated into accusations, when he insisted on loyalty while offering nothing in return, Janelle came to a realization she could no longer ignore. Remaining in this marriage wasn't only hurting her, it was hurting the people she loved most. And for Janelle, that was unforgivable. We've seen glimpses of these moments on Sister Wives. Explosive arguments where the calm, composed Janelle finally raised her voice. Scenes where she looked at Kody not with affection, but with exhaustion. Words that carried decades of unspoken pain. Those weren't isolated incidents. They were the culmination of years of betrayal and neglect. Kody insisted on unity, but what he actually desired was submission. He labeled Janelle's autonomy as betrayal. He distorted her misgivings into allegations. And when she wouldn't comply, he retaliated, because losing control of Janelle meant losing control of the family image he held onto. But Janelle wasn't the same woman anymore. She had discovered her voice. And once a woman discovers her voice, she doesn't forget it. There is a turning point in every shattered relationship where the truth can no longer be denied. For Janelle, it wasn't one blowout fight. It wasn't one cutting remark. It was a gradual, agonizing realization. This was no longer a marriage, it was a prison. She had given her devotion. She had given her time. She had given her heart. And as a response, she had been pushed aside, disregarded, and disrespected. And so she posed to herself the question that transforms everything. Why am I still here? And once that question is posed, the response is never simple, but always obvious. Breaking points don't happen suddenly. They occur after years of toleration, years of taking pain on the chin, years of praying something will transform. Janelle's breaking point was not weakness. It was strength. It was the place where she came to understand that loyalty without love is simply servitude. That unity without respect is simply control. That giving herself over for a man who no longer respected her was no longer noble. It was self-destruction. And so Janelle made a different choice. She chose herself. Fans who had been following Janelle for years were shocked and empowered. The quiet wife, the faithful one, the peacemaker, was now the woman standing tallest. She didn't walk away in rage. She didn't shout for retribution. She just stood and declared, "This is not enough for me anymore." And in that instant, Janelle was no longer simply a character on television. She was a symbol for each woman who remained quiet for too long, for each mother who gave herself up for her children, for each partner who gave more than they took. Janelle taught us all that strength does not always roar. It can whisper, "I deserve better." This isn't merely the tale of a marriage unraveling. It's a lesson. It's a reminder that even the strongest, most devoted individuals can come to an end. That resilience comes with an expiration date. That silence does not imply acceptance. Janelle's breaking point is important because it teaches us that choosing yourself is not selfish. It's survival. It teaches us that leaving is not failure. It's freedom. And above all, it teaches us that the loudest don't always win. The quietest do. And so, with her breaking point, Janelle didn't merely slam the door on Kody, she opened the door to the life that was next. One where she mattered. One where her children mattered most. One where she was no longer the product of someone else's vision, but of hers. And even though the Brown family will never be the same again, Janelle's bravery paved the way for others. A way out of silence. A way towards freedom. Because sometimes the boldest thing you can do is simply walk away at last. The man who wanted control. If Janelle's snapping point took years to develop, Kody Brown's response to it was just as inevitable. Because Kody is never the type of man who gives up. Since day one of Sister Wives, Kody has portrayed himself as a leader, a visionary, a man who can handle a home like no other. And he did, for a considerable time, at least on the surface. But leadership without humility is merely control. And control, once it's challenged, can rapidly descend into desperation. That was what happened when Janelle started pulling away. On TV, Kody frequently preached about family, religion, and oneness. He used terms such as team, commitment, and loyalty. He presented himself as the sole bearer of the heavy responsibility of leading multiple wives and dozens of kids. To others who did not gaze too intensely, he appeared to be a man trying his hardest in an unworkable position. But behind the words was another motive. A strong desire not only to lead, but to dominate. To get the last word. To ensure that his vision and not anybody else's was the one that shaped the family. For years the wives tolerated it. Sometimes they pushed back, sometimes they fought, but ultimately most fell back into line. Until Christine left. Until Mary ceased pursuing his approval. And until Janelle finally said, "No more." Kody wasn't simply losing wives. He was losing control of the story. Christine's departure shook him. But he still framed it as her weakness, her disloyalty, her failure to see the bigger picture. He told himself and the cameras that Christine was the problem, not him. Mary's heartbreak, that was her burden, not his responsibility. But Janelle, that was different. Janelle had always been his ally, the practical one, the wife who helped manage finances, the one who didn't demand constant attention. She was the backbone of stability. If even Janelle was walking away, it meant the cracks weren't just showing, they were undeniable. And for Kody, that epiphany wasn't only painful. It was embarrassing. Kody reacted the only way he knew how, with words. Long lectures, heated diatribes, and interminable explanations. He demanded the wives were ungrateful, that they weren't faithful, that they didn't hold him in reverence as husband and father. But the more he talked, the less believable he sounded. His fans at home were able to see through it. His words were not about healing, they were about dominating. His speeches were not about unity, they were about domination. Janelle, previously quiet, now pushed back. She contradicted his account. She was reminded him that leadership isn't required, it's gained. And in those altercations, fans saw something remarkable. Kody wasn't the authoritative figure he portrayed himself to be. He was a man frantically attempting to cling to a fantasy that was already lost. The fights between Kody and Janelle were some of the most explosive in Sister Wives history. He blamed her for betrayal. She blamed him for neglect. He asked for obedience. She asked for respect. Kody attempted to position himself as the victim, the sainted husband who sacrificed everything and got nothing in return. But Janelle's steady strength revealed the chinks in his narrative. She would not let him turn her independence into defiance. She would not let him shame her for needing more than morsels of his attention and love. For the first time in their marriage, Janelle stood eyeball to eyeball with Kody, and he couldn't triumph. What made Kody's fight so more difficult was that it wasn't intimate. Millions of people were witnessing it. Each fight, each tirade, each moment of denial was taped. And the viewers who had once sympathized with her started to turn against her. They noticed the favoritism. They noticed the ego. They noticed how he disregarded his wife's suffering at the expense of his own. The longer Kody talked, the further isolated he became. Christine was already gone. Mary was already gone in spirit. And Janelle, she wasn't even scared of life without him anymore. The strong patriarch image of Kody was imploding before the eyes of the very individuals who used to look up to him. Control is a delicate thing. It can get you high, but it is not durable. It only functions as long as people have faith in it. And the moment they stop, the moment they leave, control disintegrates into dust. That's what Kody was confronting. For years he thought he was the epicenter of the Brown world. But as his wives took back their voices, he discovered something he could not accept without them. He was only one man, no empire, no legacy, no big picture. Just one guy who had driven out the very people who had once trusted in him. By the time Janelle cut ties completely, Kody was left holding on to Robin, the lone wife still completely in his camp. But even that wasn't free. His fixation on Robin was the very reason that had driven the others away. His overtures to demonstrate his devotion to her only served to point out his abandonment of everyone else. And so the more he attempted to orchestrate the story, the more isolated he felt. Kody desired harmony, but he promoted discord. He desired loyalty, but he showed favoritism. He desired respect, but he wasn't willing to earn it. Ultimately, Kody wasn't the head of a family. He was the guy ruling over its devastation. Kody quotes fate to assert control isn't merely reality television melodrama, it's a study in human nature. When individuals hold on to power rather than affection, when they require devotion rather than build respect, when they value control over connection, relationships break down. His ruin wasn't due to Christine leaving, or due to Mary distancing, or due to Janelle finding her voice. His ruin was due to the fact that he never understood that leadership isn't about control, it's about service. And when he wouldn't bend, he lost it all. Kody Brown's journey is far from finished, but his battle to dictate the story has already created wounds. His wives are gaining independence. His children are redefining what family is to them, and his legacy, once intended to demonstrate harmony, is today a cautionary tale. Can Kody redeem himself? Can he regain trust? Or is he fated to be stuck in denial, grasping control until nothing is left to cling to? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, Janelle's rebellion rewrote the story for good. And no matter how hard Kody tries, he can never take that back. From silence to strength. For years, the place of Janelle Brown in the Brown family was apparent. She was the calm one, the rational one, the peacekeeper. She wasn't the most vocal wife, she wasn't the most dramatic, and she wasn't the one who appeared to require the constant attention of Kody. To most, Janelle was the unobtrusive backbone of the family. But when the pillars of the foundation begin to crumble, the quiet among them may emerge as the strongest. And for Janelle, walking out on decades of loyalty wasn't rebellion, it was a matter of survival. It was the start of a bold new journey. Walking away from any relationship is difficult. Walking away from a marriage that's held together by religion, tradition, and decades of common history, that takes a form of courage most people can hardly envision. For Janelle, the choice did not happen overnight. It happened after years of compromise, years of seeing her children suffer, and years of knowing her value had been devalued. But here's the thing, once you finally say no to fear, and yes to freedom, the world starts to change. For the first time in years, Janelle wasn't wondering how to appease Kody. She wasn't wondering how to keep the family intact. She was wondering, what do I want? What do I deserve? What's next? For me, those questions, once so frightening, became her guide. Independence is never simple, particularly for someone who spent so much of her life in a family situation structured by one man's domination. But Janelle started making small, consistent moves toward her new life. She concentrated on her children, the individuals who had always brought her the most happiness and meaning. She took time for herself, her well-being, her professional life, and her autonomy. She started to talk with a newfound confidence fans hadn't experienced yet, candidly admitting the hardships she had faced, and what she had learned from them. Every step was symbolic. Every step was impactful. Every step told viewers that Janelle wasn't broken, she was reborn. One of the most surprising aspects of Janelle's journey is how much it struck a chord with fans. Viewers who had been watching Sister Wives for more than a decade suddenly looked at themselves in her. Women who had suffered neglect, mothers who had given up for ungrateful partners, people who had remained quiet too long, all recognized Janelle's courage as a reflection of their own secret power. Social media was filled with encouragement messages. Her fans complimented her independence. They referred to her as the realest of the wives, the one who maintained herself with dignity at all times, even during heartbreak. Many of them even went ahead and stated that Janelle's exit from Kody was the most inspiring moment of the whole series, and not because she was leaving, because of the way she left, with grace, with clarity, and without hatred. Maybe the most compelling aspect of Janelle's new journey is her reframing of love. For years, love had been something that was connected to sacrifice, compromise, and acceptance of less than she had a right to. But as she entered into independence, Janelle came to know love differently. Love wasn't loyalty to someone who did not cherish her. Love wasn't keeping a family intact as she herself remained unsatisfied. Love for Janelle became self-respect, becoming happy rather than suffering, becoming an example to her children that their mother was strong enough to ask for more than lies. In doing so, she didn't just reclaim her own heart, she taught her family and millions of viewers what real love should look like. With every public appearance, every interview, every scene captured on camera, Janelle seemed to shine brighter. Gone was the wife who quietly endured. In her place stood a woman who had found her voice. She laughed harder. She smiled harder. She talked with a flame in her eyes that fans had never before seen. Not that she had let it all slip away. No one ever could. But that she had just decided to leave it behind. Her change wasn't glamorous. It wasn't sensational. It was consistent, solid, and sincere. The type of change that doesn't only inspire for a minute, it stays with you because it's real. Janelle quote, "Courageous new direction," wasn't merely rearranging her own life, it redefined the whole Sister Wives narrative. Christine's departure had been shocking. Mary's heartbreak had been painful. But Janelle's choice to stand tall carried a different kind of weight. She wasn't just walking away from Kody, she was walking towards something better. She was showing that even after decades of sacrifice, it is never too late to choose freedom. Her path created a ripple effect. The fans started questioning Kody's story even more. The viewers started reassessing what loyalty, marriage, and family should really be about. And other women outside of the show started seeing Janelle as evidence that their own breaking points can give way to something new. The best part of Janelle's story is that it isn't characterized by bitterness. She doesn't walk around with anger and resentment. She walks around with peace. That's the true mark of healing. She does not gaze back with regret. She gazes ahead with purpose. She is not defined by the man she abandoned. She is defined by the woman she became afterward. Her future is no longer bound up with propping up a dying family dream. Her future belongs to her to shape. Free from shackles, free from domination, free from silence. And that is a future to be proud of. At its essence, Janelle's courageous new way speaks to everyone. You don't have to be in a plural marriage to know what it's like to give more than you get. You don't have to be on reality television to understand what it's like to go unnoticed. Her tale is one of all of us. Of the moment you know, enough is enough. Of the bravery it takes to walk into the unknown. Of the quiet strength that becomes unstoppable. Once you know you deserve better. That's why Janelle is more than a reality TV personality. She's an icon of strength. With Christine absent, Mary removed from the scene, and Janelle forging her own path. The whole Brown legacy is different. What was once a tale of one man's vision for harmony is now a tale of women claiming their voices. Janelle's courageous new way isn't only her own life. It is the pivot that overhauled Sister Wives. It demonstrated that the program is no longer about polygamy. It's about strength, self-sufficiency, and the strength of selecting yourself. And for millions watching, that's the story they needed to see. Janelle Brown's brave new path is more than just a plot twist. It's a revolution. It's a reminder that no matter how long you've been silent, your voice still matters. No matter how long you've sacrificed, your happiness is still worth fighting for. And no matter how late it feels, it's never too late to begin again. In leaving Kody, Janelle lost not a marriage but herself. And that is the most courageous journey of all. A family that was once thought unbreakable. When Sister Wives premiered in 2010, it wasn't another reality show. It was a cultural phenomenon. The Browns introduced themselves as a harmonious, loving family. 1 man, 4 wives, and more than a dozen kids, pushing against polygamy stereotypes, and assertively declaring their love greater than judgment. To the outside world, their unity seemed unshakable. They smiled for cameras, spoke about their faith, and told audiences that theirs was a story of commitment and harmony. But beneath the polished image, fractures were already forming. And now, more than a decade later, those fractures have split the family apart. The question still stands. What does all of this do for the legacy of Sister Wives? The early seasons marketed the fantasy. Viewers were attracted to the novelty, yes, but also to the vision of a family so devoted to one another that they could ride out anything. Viewers watched, not only to observe the mechanics of plural marriage, but to see love in motion. But over the years, reality fell through the cracks. We saw disagreements explode, tears shed, and vows broken. Kody's dream of a peaceful plural marriage started to disintegrate, and so did the unity of the family. This change is part of the show's heritage. It began as a tale of being together, and evolved into a tale of being apart. Christine was the initial one to openly break loose, ending the pretense that everything was fine. She left heartily, openly, and with a sense of empowerment. She illustrated an example for millions of women that it's never later than today to leave an arrangement that no longer works for you. Mary's journey was different. Quiet, painful, marked by years of being sidelined. When she finally accepted that her marriage with Kody was over, it felt like the closing of a long, sad chapter. And then came Janelle. Her independence wasn't loud or dramatic. It was steady, thoughtful, and deeply relatable. She didn't just leave Kody. She walked into a new life defined by her own choices. Together, these tales rewrote the script. Sister Wives was no longer about the man at the center. It became about the women gaining strength within their own voices. And then there's Kody. For years he was the leader, the visionary, the glue that held it all together. But when the family fell apart, his job changed. Rather than being remembered as the man who created a harmonious household, many now perceive him as the man whose ego and favoritism destroyed it. This is part of the tangled history of Sister Wives. Kody used to represent a brash defense of plural marriage. Now to many viewers, he is the embodiment of the risks of control, abandonment, and pride. His narrative is not only one of loss, it's one of accountability. What do we say about this? Is the history of Sister Wives one of failure, heartbreak, and disappointment? Or is it more complex? Others will claim it's a tale of warning. A reminder that one man's dream of ruling multiple marriages is as much fantasy as a fairy tale. Others will interpret it as evidence that in the most unusual families, there are human problems that recur everywhere: jealousy, neglect, and the quest for love. But others, particularly the viewers who are rooting for Christine, Janelle, and even Mary, perceive the legacy differently. To them, the narrative isn't about a family tearing apart. It's about women shattering chains. It's about strength, healing, and realizing that autonomy can be stronger than loyalty. Of course, the narrative isn't solely about Kody and his wives. It's about their children. For decades, the children lived out under the gaze of cameras, working through the peculiar dynamics of their unconventional family. They witnessed the best and worst of polygamy. And now, as adults, many of them are speaking candidly about their own decisions, and many of them are opting for monogamy rather than emulating their parents. This next generation will ultimately inherit the real legacy of Sister Wives. Will they take their parents' struggles as a warning, or as a foundation upon which to create something new? That's still being written. But one thing is certain: the children have seen the price of sacrifice, and they are determined to live differently. We can't help but notice how Sister Wives recharted the cultural map. Prior to the show, polygamy was hidden or sensationalized. The Browns introduced it into American living rooms, making it appear less strange, less jarring. But as the series progressed, it showed more than the mechanics of plural marriage. It showed the cracks within. It showed what happens when one individual's authority eclipses another's voice. It compelled viewers to encounter unpleasant realities about disparity, favoritism, and abandonment. In the process, Sister Wives transcended mere entertainment. It became a reflection, reflecting back not just the Browns' challenges, but viewers' relationships, their sacrifices, their quiet struggles. A compelling aspect of the legacy is how allegiance shifted in the audience. Initially, viewers watched to see Kody pilot his household. Yet over time, attention swiveled to the wives, particularly Christine and Janelle. This change tells us a lot about the show's legacy. Fans no longer felt invested in one man's dream and 4 wives. They felt invested in the women who gained the courage to say enough. That's where the heart of the story resides. And that's what will stick with audiences most. Great stories, even a great tragic story like this one, always leave lessons behind. Sister Wives' legacy is no exception. Love without respect is not love. Sacrifice without appreciation creates resentment. Loyalty without reciprocity is a trap. And occasionally, the greatest act of bravery is to get out of there. These are lessons that don't only apply to polygamy, they apply to all relationships. And that's why this story appeals so far beyond fans of the program. If there is one term that embodies the Sister Wives legacy today, it is resilience. Christine discovered it when she decided to leave. Janelle found it when she entered into independence. Mary found it when she was confronted with a future without Kody. Even Robin, the surviving wife, has to discover it now as she tries to make a marriage work that is nothing like what she had envisioned. Resilience is the common thread that ties their tale together. And that's why audiences will continue to watch even as the initial dream dissolves. The reality is, the history of Sister Wives is not complete. The tale continues to unfold. Episode by episode, season by season. Perhaps someday Kody will look back and realize the part he had in bringing the family down. Perhaps the wives will start anew, that will be more amazing than the very first show ever could have been. Perhaps the kids will tell their own tales, showing us the world from a different side, what it was like to grow up under the umbrella of such an interesting family. What we do know for certain is this: the Browns' tale will keep people talking about love, family, and freedom for decades to come. What does it all do for the legacy of Sister Wives? It means the program isn't remembered about a man keeping multiple marriages intact, it's remembered about the women who walked away. It means the narrative isn't about polygamy working. It's about people tapping into their strength when it doesn't. And above all, it means that the legacy of Sister Wives isn't one of brokenness. It's one of resilience. Because, at the end of the day, this was never just Kody's story, it was Christine's story. It was Janelle's story, it was Mary's story, and it's still being written.